The world we navigate today is so interconnected. It just keeps throwing these unprecedented challenges our way. It really makes you stop and wonder, are we truly deeply ready for the next big one? Look, we believe that some books, well, they must be challenged. This critique uses, where it fits, a step-by-step critical thinking framework. It maps claims to evidence, drawing from the work of Richard Paul and Linda Elder. We also bring in an intellectual framework inspired by Mortimer J. Adler's ideas about knowledge, and importantly, we use the Golden Rule and the U.S. Preamble to spot ethical asymmetries. Then we wrap up with a logical analysis and aim for a really balanced conclusion. So today we're diving into Michael Osterholm's pretty urgent book, the big one, How We Must Prepare for Future Deadly Pandemics. He wrote it with Mark Olshaker. And this isn't just, another book. It's a raw public health analysis, a sharp policy critique, and frankly, a stark look into future scenarios. Its core message, well, it hits hard. The world is still dangerously unprepared for pandemics that could be far deadlier than COVID-19. And Osterholm argues that only immediate kind of structural changes can avert catastrophe. It came out post-COVID-19, so it really tries to integrate those hard-won, often painful lessons. Oh, and by the way, you are experiencing a unique two-host AI conversation powered by Google's NotebookLM for a deeper, more dynamic book critique.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating here, I think, is how a structured critique like ours can shine a light not just on the urgency and the moral clarity of Osterholm's work, but also precisely pinpoint the practical hurdles, the real challenges in actually achieving true pandemic preparedness. So we're not just giving you a summary of the book. We're using a systematic framework to really analyze its argument, giving you a hopefully more informed, multi-layered view.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Where did Osterholm plant his flag? What were the big claims he wanted us to really grapple with? Our deep dive started by putting his core assertions under the microscope. What did we find were his central arguments? And maybe more importantly, what evidence did he actually bring to the table?
Right. So our analysis identified three major assertions that are basically the backbone of the big one. First, Osterholm claims, and it's a big one, that the COVID-19 response exposed these profound structural weaknesses, not just globally, but specifically. He points fingers at the U.S. system. It wasn't just about, say, a lack of PPE. Our critique really picked up on his insight that it revealed a deep failure of imagination within leadership, an inability to truly grasp what a deadly, fast-moving respiratory pathogen could do, despite, frankly, decades of warnings. Second, he argues, and we found the evidence he presented quite compelling, that the likelihood of future, much deadlier big one, is scientifically plausible. It's not just fear-mongering. He backs this up by citing real scientific findings, things about dangerous viral constructs, including viruses found in bats. The implication is clear. That threat of zoonotic spillover is constant. And third, he really stresses the urgent need for practical reforms, things like biosecurity, better international coordination, rebuilding public trust, and ensuring transparent governance. These aren't just like nice ideas. Our critique saw them presented as basically non-negotiable necessities if we want to be ready.
That's a powerful and quite sobering set of claims. So what specific evidence did he use to back these assertions up? Beyond just saying things went wrong, what did he present?
Well, to support those claims, the book provides a really detailed, meticulous post-mortem analysis. It looks at both governmental and health agency failures and their successes during COVID-19. It's pretty balanced in that sense. It also constructs this hypothetical scenario involving something he calls SARS-CoV-3, basically a hypothetical, even more dangerous coronavirus. But it's not just pulled out of thin air. It's substantiated by those real scientific findings we mentioned about dangerous viral constructs and how they could emerge. And significantly, Osterholm uses compelling historical analogies. He brings up the 9/11 Commission quite a bit. He uses it to illustrate the critical need for a bipartisan, really honest review of our preparedness systems. His point is, we've learned these hard lessons before, but we seem to consistently fail to apply them long term.
Okay, here's where our analysis took maybe a deeper turn. Our critique used an intellectual framework, drawing from Mortimer J. Adler's work, to categorize the types of content Osterholm presents. How did that help us distinguish between, say, opinion, knowledge, understanding, and wisdom within his arguments? It sounds a bit abstract.
It might sound abstract, but it's actually a really powerful tool for gauging the robustness of any argument. Think of it like sorting different kinds of information. So opinion in the book, as we identified it, refers mostly to Osterholm's informed speculations, things about future public responses or how the media might behave in another crisis. These are projections based on his considerable expertise, sure, but they're still estimations, educated guesses. Then there's knowledge. This is where he presents the hard facts, the undeniable stuff, epidemiological data, documented flaws in past pandemic responses, the scientifically established existence of dangerous viral constructs, verifiable truths. Understanding then emerges when Osterholm goes beyond just listing facts. He starts identifying these deeper patterns. He connects societal failures like, fragmented responses or that lack of public trust to predictable future crises. He shows how these different elements interact to create systemic breakdowns.
Ah, okay. So he's not just listing facts, he's connecting the dots to show us why things tend to happen the way they do.
Exactly. It's seeing the underlying currents, the why behind the what. And then finally, there's wisdom. Wisdom is reflected in his judicious advocacy for reforms. Reforms that don't just solve the immediate problem, but aim to balance really big things: liberty, security, public health. And crucially, not just for us today, but across generations. Our critique found Osterholm's wisdom wasn't just about balancing abstract ideas, it was his profound call to reframe public health entirely, moving it from just a reactive emergency thing to a core generational investment in societal resilience. He argues pretty convincingly, I think, that true liberty is impossible without collective security and health. And making this distinction, opinion, knowledge, understanding, wisdom, is crucial because it helps you, the listener, critically evaluate how strong each part of the book's argument is. You see what's built on concrete data versus informed speculation or deeper insight.
That's a really helpful distinction. Moving from what we know to what we truly understand, and then, hopefully, how we should act wisely, which naturally raises another important question. Beyond the science and the policy, what about the ethical side of Osterholm's message? How did our critique apply the golden rule to his proposals?
Well, the book explicitly advocates for empathy and reciprocity in policymaking. It really hammers home the importance of considering the most vulnerable populations, not just the privileged, when we plan for and respond to these events. Our critique found that Osterholm isn't just talking about some lofty moral ideal here. He's actually presenting it as a practical necessity for effective public health. If you leave segments of society behind, the whole response suffers. It's a strong critique of one-sided solutions, really emphasizing that pandemic justice, if it's going to work, has to serve everyone. And the critique specifically highlights these ethical asymmetries that we've seen historically. Things like the disproportionate, unequal impact of pandemics on marginalized communities. These are presented as clear failures to uphold reciprocal moral standards, basically. Failures to treat others as we would wish to be treated, especially when a crisis hits those most at risk hardest. This perspective really underscores that true preparedness isn't just about vaccines or logistics. It's deeply tied to social justice. And our analysis showed Osterholm pushing this point very hard.
Okay, so if we connect all this to the bigger picture, civic responsibility, our critique also used the U.S. Preamble as a kind of lens. How did the book's calls for action line up with those foundational aims?
It's actually quite striking how well Osterholm's arguments resonate with the Preamble's goals, especially his calls to form a more perfect union. He does this by urging us to heal the societal divisions that COVID-19 exposed so starkly. His argument is essentially that a fragmented society simply cannot effectively combat a unified viral threat. Unity is strength here. He also makes a powerful connection between biosecurity and the Preamble's goal to provide for common defense. He highlights, rightly I think, that national security in the 21st century isn't just military anymore. It absolutely includes biological threats. So he stresses the need for robust, preemptive biosecurity measures. But, and this is critical, without sacrificing the essential blessings of liberty through, say, governmental overreach. It's a tough balance. Collective protection and individual rights. And finally, his push to promote the general welfare really stands out. He sees this through comprehensive public health strategies that aim to uplift everyone, considering mental health, economic stability, equity. It ties right back to those ethical asymmetries we talked about, reinforcing the idea that true societal well-being requires this holistic approach that benefits all, not just a select few.
Just a quick note here, this deep dive is all about inspiring reflection and rational thought. For more AI book analysis, summaries, critiques, and podcasts, all designed to inspire reflection and rational thought, you should definitely check out Mindful Moments, which is our YouTube channel. Okay, now let's get down to the logical arguments themselves. What were the critique's findings on the logical strengths, but also any potential weaknesses within the big one? Did we find points where the arguments maybe don't hold up quite as strongly, or perhaps could even be, well, counterproductive?
Right, on the logical strengths, our analysis concluded that the book is fundamentally built on pretty rigorous, evidence-based reasoning. It relies heavily on epidemiological data, expert testimony, which definitely gives its assertions significant weight. We also noted, as we discussed, The clear distinction Osterholm maintains between opinion, knowledge, understanding, and wisdom following that Adlerian hierarchy. That structured approach really does lend credibility to his conclusions. However, you asked about weaknesses, and our critique did identify a few potential ones. For instance, some of the hypotheticals, like that SARS-CoV-3 scenario, they do rely on speculative extrapolations. Now, while they're scientifically plausible based on current knowledge, they are not certainties. And by focusing so heavily on these potentially catastrophic what-if scenarios, our critique noted there's a risk, maybe an unintended one, that for some readers it could overstate the immediate case for absolute urgency. It might potentially lead to a sense of, like, fatalism or being overwhelmed rather than empowering action.
That's a really interesting point. So while the warning is compelling, the sheer scale of it could paradoxically maybe paralyze some people rather than mobilize them.
Exactly. It's a very fine line to walk when communicating risk. There's also the potential for confirmation bias. It's natural. While Osterholm is incredibly knowledgeable in public health, the emphasis on that perspective might inadvertently understate or perhaps overlook other equally relevant factors: dissenting ethical views, complex political realities, significant economic impacts. These are all crucial for a truly comprehensive pandemic response plan. Our analysis suggested that a more explicit acknowledgement and engagement with these other valid perspectives could have potentially strengthened the book's overall persuasiveness for an even broader audience.
Okay, moving beyond the immediate policy implications, our critique also assessed the book's wisdom, sort of looking at its long-term consequences and broader impact. What did it reveal about the enduring value of Osterholm's message?
Well, the book's enduring wisdom, as our analysis saw it, really lies in its advocacy for a type of preparedness that goes far beyond just stocking up for the next outbreak. It's not just about masks and ventilators. It calls for building enduring adaptive systems for societal resilience. It emphasizes the fundamental interconnectedness of health, justice, and civic stability. This isn't about a quick fix. It's arguing for a foundational change, almost a societal reorientation towards long-term thinking. The critique also notes the profound spiritual and economic impact that's implied by the book's arguments. Osterholm's work, we believe, implies this deep moral imperative. An imperative to value life, human dignity, and social cohesion above, say, mere expediency or short-term profit motives. This perspective resonates with both secular and potentially religious ethical principles. It suggests that how we respond to pandemics ultimately reflects our deepest values as a society. It really makes you pause and think about how foundational these choices are, doesn't it?
It truly does. So, drawing towards a balanced conclusion then, what did the systematic critique ultimately find as the key strengths and, on the flip side, the key weaknesses of the big one?
Okay, summing up the strengths. The critique found the book offers a really rigorous analysis of past pandemic failures, and it provides clear, actionable recommendations for future preparedness, which is valuable. It also masterfully bridges scientific insight with ethical reflection and historical context, giving the argument significant depth. Furthermore, Osterholm consistently promotes a unified, bipartisan approach. This acts as a crucial warning against the divisiveness and complacency that could be so damaging, urging us to overcome the political fractures that have hampered responses before. On the other hand, the weaknesses we identified largely revolve around that reliance on hypothetical viral scenarios. While they're powerful rhetorical tools, as we discussed, this might lead some readers to perceive an overstatement of the case for absolute immediate urgency. Additionally, while the policy recommendations themselves are actionable on paper, our critique notes they perhaps don't fully grapple with the immense political and economic hurdles involved in actually implementing them, especially on a global scale.
It's one thing to suggest a reform, quite another to navigate the messy realities of getting it done. And all of this leaves us with some really critical unresolved questions. Questions the book raises, and frankly, our world must continue to grapple with. How do we actually foster lasting public trust in health institutions? Particularly in this age of rampant misinformation. It's a huge challenge, and maybe the biggest one. How do we effectively balance individual freedoms with the need for collective security during a crisis, especially in an increasingly fractious environment, without eroding the very liberties we aim to protect? These questions are absolutely central to our future preparedness.
Those are truly vital questions, aren't they? Really shaping our collective future. And as you, listening, consider your own role in building resilience and trust in what feels like a very uncertain future, just remember that informed reflection is probably our best defense.
Yeah, and our comprehensive critique here applied a robust framework. We integrated evidence analysis, ethical reciprocity using the Golden Rule, and looked at constitutional civic aims via the Preamble, all to offer this nuanced analysis. We leverage that step-by-step critical thinking framework, the intellectual framework inspired by Mortimer J. Adler, really trying to map claims to evidence, identify those ethical layers, and formulate a balanced conclusion. We hope it stimulates your own rational thought.
Click the link you see on screen for the full, in-depth book analysis. And please, subscribe, share, purchase the book via the link if you're interested, and above all, think rationally.
And don't forget to see the many genre-based book podcasts at Mindful Moments. Subscribe and nourish your mind on the go.